Today's episode is brought to you by the Dancewear Center. Need dancewear? Dance shoes? That unitard you've always wanted? Dancewear Center's got you covered from head to toe. Shop in-store or online at dancewearcenter.com. Dance is life. Live your passion. Do you constantly take heels classes as a way to feel empowered through your sensuality and vulnerability? Are you the type of dancer who has doubts if this career is even right for you? This is Season 2, Episode 3, Number 36, called Faith and Affirmations with Kaela Faloon.
It's helped me with my worth ethic. Oh my God, can we start this over?
Grief and resilience live together. That is an excerpt from Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, and we feel it's the perfect quote to share during this vulnerable time. Now, it's no secret that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected artists around the world, but if there's one thing that we do know about artists, it's that we're very resourceful, resilient, and above all, supportive. Just this last week, dancers have been participating in online dance classes from their favorite instructors, challenging each other to in-home sessions, and have been providing resources and support to one another. A fellow community member and past guest on our show, Mingbo Lam, also posted a few days ago about some ways you can help our community. Some of those ways are signing the petition circulating to advocate support for freelancers through government relief programs, purchase gift cards to small and local businesses that you can use at a later date, donating what you have previously purchased instead of asking for a refund, and for example, maybe keeping your studio or gym membership active, or donating a ticket purchased for a performance. And last thing, check in with your dance instructors, small business owners, freelance friends. Check in with everyone. Even if you DM them with some kind words of support, it can truly go a long way. Now, at the Dance Plug, we started a relief fund dedicated to the freelance dance artists that are residing in Toronto who are dealing with tremendous financial losses due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, as most of you know, most of our dancers in our community are not eligible to apply for employment insurance as they are independent contractors. You can find the link to donate in our show notes. Just recently, the Government of Canada announced an emergency care benefit which provides up to $900 every 2 weeks for up to 15 weeks to those affected by COVID-19. It's intended for those who don't qualify for employment insurance, can't go to work, and also don't have any paid sick leave. These workers include the self-employed who are currently quarantined. The benefit plan will be available to apply for in April through the Canada Revenue Agency website. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to Season 2 of the Unplugged podcast presented by Dance Plug Canada. My name is Rory Bonozo, and I'm a former dance studio manager turned dance entrepreneur and advocate. Each week, we bring you a guest or guests who talk about their experiences working in the industry, along with some valuable insight and opinions about hot topics in our community. This week, we sat down with Kaela Faloon. From small-town MANOTICK, Ontario to now big city LA, Kaela is a true example of what hard work, dedication, and undeniable faith can achieve. Kaela's humble beginnings started at the age of 11, where she began training in ballet, jazz, contemporary, and hip-hop at her home studio, GRETA LEEMING. Following this, she was accepted into RYERSON'S dance program, where she imagined pursuing dance as a contemporary company member. But to her surprise, her dance career took a whole new direction, and Kaela was introduced to the commercial world. From there, Kaela began working with well-renowned choreographers on numerous projects and performances. Some of Kaela's credits include the iHeartRadio Music Awards, the Toronto International Film Festival, the Pan Am Games, seen in music videos by Rihanna and Drake, Snoop Dogg, Shawn Mendes, Julie Black, and also some live and touring performances with some artists including Meghan Trainor, Nick Jonas, Maya, Masari, and The Roots, just to name a few. Now, in 2016, Kaela incorporated her heels company, Sensual Healing, where she trains women and men how to exude confidence in their heels. Her company has had huge success with continuous sold-out workshops and shows, as well as featured performances at Toronto's Fashion Week, Choreo Ball, Industry Night, Montreal's RTCN, Her Creative TO, and many more. Kaela recently announced that she will be taking her career to the next level and saying goodbye to Toronto and hello to Los Angeles, California. Kaela is excited about this new chapter and looks forward to continuing to inspire artists to unapologetically live in their purpose. Now, it's fitting that this episode is called Faith and Affirmations because you know and I know we could all use a little faith and affirming in this very vulnerable time. Now, without further ado, this is Season 2, Episode 3, Number 36, with Kaela Faloon. episode 36 with my good friend, Kaela Faloon. How are you doing?
I'm good, Roy. Thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you for taking the time to finally sit down with me because we've got a few days before you head over to the States.
I know, it's crazy.
It's still very surreal.
Crazy.
Still very
surreal. Mm-hmm. So surreal. I'm still haven't processed it fully, but I'm so grateful for where my journey has brought me, and I'm so excited to be here to talk to you about it.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people who've been with you through the thick and thin throughout your journey, or through the 11 years, right? 11 years.
Been here 11 years.
Through the 11 years you've been here, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. And,
I know.
They get to take this little piece home with them.
The longest breakup ever. Yeah, they get to take this little piece of me with them, keep it with them forever. So that's pretty special. So thank you again for asking me
anytime
to be with you.
I start every single episode with the same question that I ask every guest. So, where does your journey in dance begin?
So funny enough, I started figure skating first, but I loved dance since a young age. I feel like that's a lot of our stories. I loved dancing, but I actually got into dancing because I have really bad feet. So my aunt is a podiatrist, and she recommended me go to ballet classes because I had flat feet and weak ankles and bunions. If you've seen my feet, I know you guys have. I have really bad feet. So it came as like a recommendation just to help with like my feet and my posture. And from then on, it's become like a crazy success story. But I started in Ottawa, Ontario at GRETA LEEMING Dance Studio. And then from there, by fluke, I auditioned for Ryerson, their dance program. Never, ever imagined that I would audition for Ryerson dance program. It wasn't something in my plan. I was going to go to business and open up my own business. And that was my plan when I was in high school. And then I auditioned for Ryerson, got accepted on the spot, which again, so surreal. It felt like such a movie. I stayed there for a year and a half. So I did not complete Ryerson's training, which is really heartbreaking for me because at that moment I wanted to be in a contemporary company. I wanted to be a prima ballerina. I wanted that whole dance journey to be mine, and it wasn't realistic for me. And so they kind of gave me some harsh news and kind of let me know that I didn't fit into that box that they wanted me to fit in. And I was feeling really discouraged and I wasn't feeling enough. I started contemplating whether dance was where I was supposed to be, where I was meant to be. And I went back home to Ottawa and got back into business classes. So I started taking business courses, and I was like, okay, I'm back to where I imagined myself to be. Then So You Think You Could Dance came around, and I built up the courage to audition. I auditioned in Montreal, and funny enough, I auditioned with Derek Robinson and Sarah Steven. Yeah, those two were in my group in Montreal, and we all made it to finals week, and that's what brought me back to Toronto. And since then, I haven't left. So that's like a little background story on kind of my dance journey to like what brought me to Toronto in the first place and why I haven't left since.
Perfect segue into the next question, because if we maybe look back 11 years from now and then come to today and the Kaela that we know today.
Kaela that we know today, yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, how did you become the Kaela that we know today?
Work ethic. I feel like I've always been the underdog, and I don't feel like people see me as that, but I definitely have been. Back in like my days in Ottawa at the dance studio, like I wasn't the best of the best. At Ryerson, I wasn't the best of the best. Auditioning for So You Think You Dance, like I didn't make it on the show. Like I wasn't the best of the best. But my work ethic, that's the best of the best. And I think that has what's gotten me hired and rehired, is that I'm consistently delivering the best of me. And that just comes from treating every job like it's my first job. I think that's so important, is every job, little or big, whether it's with a big choreographer, a smaller choreographer, a friend, big alert sign right there, friends. Like, you got to treat everybody with respect, and every job is an opportunity for you to grow and to excel. And so for me, it's like, before the job, I'm treating it like I booked the job, and after the job, I'm thanking people on the team for allowing me to be a part of it. So I'm saying, like, when you send emails out to people, be professional. Hi, I'm Kaela Faloon. Like, here's my resume. Here's my headshot. If you need anything additional, please let me know. And I'm saying you send that email to your friends as well. So if I'm sending an email to Jonah Abrams, I'm going to send an email as professional as possible, because right now she is my boss. And you don't know where this email is getting forwarded to. And then on the job, like in rehearsals, I'm making sure I'm showing up to rehearsals on time. I'm not late. I'm not wasting time picking up food, showing up late with Starbucks in my hand and saying, oh, sorry, transit was slow. No, it wasn't. Like, you had time to pick up food on the way.
Yeah.
When I'm in rehearsals, I'm being respectful to not only the choreographer, but my peers, my fellow dancers, whether they're younger than me, older than me, have more experience than me, less experience than me. I humble myself. Like, I'm in a creative space with incredible human beings, not just artists or dancers. I'm in a space with such incredible people. Then after rehearsal, I'm watching the videos, rehearsal videos. I'm making notes. I'm listening to my music. I'm really making sure that I'm well prepared for the following rehearsal. And then show day, again, showing up on time. Do I have my costumes, my hair, my makeup? Am I well prepared so that if anything last minute happens, I'm already on top of it? I always say, like, be prepared so you don't have to get prepared. And then after everything's done, have you said thank you? Have you thanked the entire team, not just certain individuals? Like, have you thanked wardrobe? Have you thanked the people that are running around and getting you food? Have you thanked the other dancers that you're dancing with? Maybe that's your first time dancing with them. Have you thanked the choreographer? Have you thanked the artistic director? Have you thanked the director? Like, it's a whole team process, and you wouldn't have been able to get to that spot without everybody helping you out. So I think if I'm going to wrap that question up, it's my work ethic and my mannerisms have always been like top priority. Because at the end of the day, that's what my advantage is. And I'm not putting on a front. That's genuinely how I am. I was raised really, really well. Thank you to my parents. But just being a good person and staying humble and being grateful and understanding that any day these opportunities could disappear. Anything is possible, and you've got to be grateful and stay humble in the moment and continue to work hard. You don't get to a certain point and then you get to chill. It only gets harder as you get older. It only gets harder because there's more talent coming my way. These 20-year-olds, they are talented. Like, we're not saying that you guys aren't talented. Like, we are scared for our jobs, but I think what I have, I'm going to speak for myself personally, what I have over people is that I'm the full package when it comes to talent and hard work ethic. And I definitely have trained my company members, my workshop students, my class students to be the exact same, to exemplify that. So that is how I've become the Kaela that we all know today. It's just hard work, dedication, and just truly understanding that I have something great to offer and to never doubt that greatness.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so earlier on you were saying, you went to Ryerson for 1.5 years, and then you went home to teach, and then you decided to audition for So You Think You Can Dance in Montreal.
Yes.
And it was at that moment that you decided, I wanted to be a commercial dancer. So you moved to Toronto.
I moved back to Toronto.
Why don't you take us through, I guess, your journey from that moment when you decided to move back? What did you do?
Yeah, so after Ryerson, I was, of course, feeling like I wasn't enough and that this dance industry wasn't for me. So I did head back to my hometown, Ottawa, and started teaching the competitive dance team, while also enrolling back into business courses. And at that point, I started reevaluating my career and just considering the potential of opening up my own dance studio and what that would look like. But still, I've just felt like there was a spark missing personally. And I felt like I was too young to be settling down as a teacher or a studio owner. And it truly wasn't until So You Think auditions came around where I felt that fire in me ignite. And it was then and there I knew I hadn't even tapped into what I had to offer. And it's crazy how So You Think brought me back to Toronto. A missed opportunity was an opportunity. I didn't make it on the show. I wasn't one of the selected dancers, but that opportunity in itself presented me with so many more opportunities that were right for me and my life purpose. I think that's so important to understand, that a missed opportunity is an opportunity in itself. I wouldn't have moved back to Toronto if it wasn't for So You Think auditions. It's just so crazy to reflect back on it all. So yeah, anyways, finals week brought me back to Toronto, which was exciting, but also nerve-wracking as a young aspiring dancer, because living in Toronto is expensive. So I had to figure out how I was going to finance my passion and career while also pursuing it. That's the tricky part, right? I didn't have the financial backing from my parents. They, of course, supported me, but I financed my career, which I'm super proud of. And it allows me to be an example that you can be successful in this industry as a dancer, that it is possible, and that starving artist can and should be removed from your vocabulary, 100%. We don't need to say that anymore, but you obviously have to start somewhere. I had to start somewhere. I had to start making money. So I decided to get a serving job at Jackastor's, which I'm so thankful for my manager, Johnny. Shout out to Johnny and all my fellow servers, because they were so understanding and flexible with my dance schedule and so willing to switch shifts and cover shifts for me so I could audition, I could perform, I could train. I'm just so thankful for them. But I was really transparent when they hired me. And I told them dance was my end goal, right? I told them, listen, I want to be here. I want to make money, but dance is my dream. That is the end all be all. But you best believe that when I was there at work, I was 100% there, and I delivered. I did not take for granted the fact that I had a job, for one, and two, on top of that, that I had an incredible team who supported my dream just as much as I did. It's so important not to neglect your side jobs, because they will be the jobs that launch the financial backing for your career. My serving job provided me with the funds to be able to train, to be able to be part of companies, and to be able to build relationships with dancers and choreographers. At that time, I was training with The Cast, which was founded by Danny Davalos and Angela Mahoney-Jones. And then I also was training with Hollywood Jade, Urban-esque. So I had my heels training with Hollywood Jade, and then I was doing my urban training with Danny and Angela Mahoney-Jones. So, but I was finding it difficult because at that time I was trying to balance my job and my dancing, and I felt like I was kind of getting torn between the two, and I really wanted to focus on dance. That's why I moved back to Toronto was to dance. And so I was getting more jobs. Scott Fordham was a part of that as well. Mark Samuels, Toya Robinson, Toya Badeau now. There was just so many people that I was getting the opportunity to work with. And so I had to make that big decision of leaving my security blanket job, which was really difficult. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people struggle with that, right? Like, okay, well, how am I going to finance myself? How am I going to survive? How am I going to make this dream work? It's not going to work if you have a plan B.
Yep. Oh, 100%. And I'm learning that now.
Yeah.
Right. And it's been so fulfilling because it brought me to a place where I started to think about, I'm already committed now. I've made this decision. Mm-hmm. I'm going to run the Dance Plug. I'm going to do this podcast. I'm going to help people.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of risks obviously involved. But I've been so happy throughout this process and haven't had to, deal with any stresses of having a job before.
Right.
So, I mean, it does have its pros and cons, but as long as you keep, and this is just some advice for anyone who's thinking about either running their own business, because as artists, you are your own business.
Right.
Keep in the back end of your mind that like you have an end goal that you want to reach. Mm-hmm. Right. So as long as you're doing everything while keeping that on the back of your mind, it'll all come full circle, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on in our interview, because, because this whole conversation is all based on that, right?
Mm-hmm. You can't allow yourself to have the option to fail. And a plan B is an option to fail. You're like, oh, okay, well, if this doesn't go through, or like, ooh, I don't know, but like, just in case it doesn't happen and I don't succeed, at least I have this option. Yeah. And I realized at a young age, you got to pull that option. Mm-hmm. So I said goodbye to my restaurant job, politely, of course, respectfully. I had a really good sit down conversation with my boss and was like, listen, this is where I'm at. And I really want to pursue this dream of mine. And he was like, absolutely, go. Mm-hmm. And I've never had to look back because I wouldn't let myself fail.
Before you continue on, I think another thing too is that we can switch your doubts into affirmations, right? So instead of having, those things in your mind where it's like, if this happens, switch it to when it happens, right? Switch your ifs and whens and see how that works out.
Exactly.
I know a friend of mine likes to use sticky notes that, he'll write affirmations and post them all over his house just as like keen reminders. And sometimes that's what we need. I think the moment you start to doubt yourself, you probably won't achieve what you want to, because there's just that, there's just that doubt there. It's hard. It's, you just need switch your ifs to whens.
Yeah. And exactly. That's what I wrote in my post, right? But I just had to speak things into existence, even when there was no security in it. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened with my dance journey at the beginning. It was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fund myself, but I'm definitely going to figure out a way. Like, I will absolutely not let myself not figure out a way.
Yeah.
And it helped because I started working at such a young age. I started working at the age of 11. My mom said, as soon as I could start working, I did. I was knocking on people's doors, asking if they needed babysitters, if they needed like help with their kids. And my mom's like, you just always were a hustler. Mm-hmm. And I just have always found a way to support myself. And I've never allowed myself not to fail. I've failed a lot, but not allow my failures to define me, because I failed for a reason. Either it's always a lesson, but there's always a positive outcome that comes from that lesson or comes from that failure. And so I just have always believed that everything will work out, and you just got to have undeniable faith in it. So yeah.
What would you say was your biggest challenge in becoming a professional dancer?
Building a strong mental foundation. Hands down. It's so important to strengthen your mind so that no person or opportunity can make you feel less than you are. like this industry is so cutthroat, and it will do a lot of damage if your mental foundation isn't solid. We're in an industry that is so competitive, but so limited in jobs and funding. So people are afraid to show too much support, right, for another person, because they're in fear that supporting another greatness, like another person's greatness, right, will diminish theirs.
And I don't even think that's the case. I think we should all celebrate everyone's triumphs, right?
Of course. But it's just difficult, right? Because obviously having that mentality, it leads to an industry full of like nervous, anxious, insecure artists, right? Whose actions and words are now a reflection of that. And people are now becoming toxic versions of themselves. And they're allowing the industry to determine the value of their greatness and not themselves.
Whether it be social media. I mean, social media now, like it's crazy.
It's crazy how you can wake up in the morning and see one thing and that will totally throw your day off. And all of a sudden, last night you went to bed feeling like you had it all together. And this morning you saw something that made you doubt how incredibly phenomenal you are. And so that's what I've been like, that has been my struggle. And it's still a work in progress. Everything's a work in progress, but I believe in building a strong mental foundation so that nothing can rock you, because this industry is full of so many no's. And most of the time it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your talent. And it has everything to do with like the slightest little like detail that they want for a casting or for a video or for an artist. It has nothing to do with who you are and how qualified you are. So you just got to let that stuff roll off. And I've learned to keep what serves me and my purpose and just to release anything that doesn't. Because it's so much heavy weight to carry around. People are not going to like you in this industry. People are not going to support you in this industry. People will hire you one day, fire you the next, right? It's so unpredictable, but you can't let that affect you, because what is meant for you will always find its way to you.
Yeah.
And what has left you was meant to leave you. I'm a firm believer in that. There's been times where I'm like, oh, of course I have moments where I'm like, I would love to be on that job. Who wouldn't want to be on that job? That's a cute paycheck. That's a great team. But then I'm like, oh, shoot, that happened? Oh, you didn't get paid that rate? Oh, you did extra work? Like you did double work that wasn't paid for? Oh, you were treated with like disrespectfully? Oh, okay, I see now. I see why that wasn't meant for me. Right? And maybe it's not necessarily like that. Maybe it's actually something that I'm like, oh, I wasn't prepared for it. You know what, Kaela? You weren't prepared for that opportunity. You're not ready to receive that opportunity yet. And that's also totally okay as well, because that's exciting. That means I have so much room to grow. And that when I do get an opportunity right like that, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I thought I was ready, but now I'm ready. And this shit feels good. You know what I mean? Like, you have worked your way up to receiving that opportunity. So my biggest struggle, but the best struggle, and the thing I feel like has been my greatest lesson these past 2 years, has just been like really, really, really building that foundation of just having a strong like mental game in this industry. And just not taking things so seriously and remembering why you started. I literally remember why I started dancing and why I wanted to pursue this in the first place. And then I check myself real quick. So hopefully that helps, because that has been one of the best things that I've dedicated, especially 2019, towards, was really, really, really making sure that I'm checking in with myself and I'm healing myself and I'm doing the work on myself so that nothing or no one can take my happiness or my purpose away from me.
Mm-hmm. Earlier on, you were talking about, training with several companies, and Urbanesque was one of them. And that is a heels company, a heels-based company, which just recently returned.
I know. It's so exciting.
Yeah. So, why focus on heels more than, the other styles of dance, and why train in heels?
That is a really good question. So a lot of you don't know, but I have an insane obsession with heels. Ever since I was little, ever since I could walk, I was wearing my mom's heels. I just had this like obsession. It followed me to my kindergarten class. Like my kindergarten teacher, I would ask to like literally wear her heels that were on her feet. I was obsessed. Everybody that knew me knew that I loved heels. And then I loved dancing. So it's crazy how I stumbled upon Urbanesque's promo for their audition. And I just remember seeing long legs, fishnets, stiletto heels. The women who are now like my closest friends were in minimal clothing. And that video terrified me. I was like, I want to be a part of this because it looks so empowering, but I'm terrified to audition. And I built up the nerves and I went to the audition and I just fell in love with dancing in heels. Like it's something that's so indescribable. And I know for my women and men who have laced up their heels, it feels like armor. Like it feels like I am this superhero and no one can mess with me. No one can mess with me. No one can tell me otherwise. No one can tell me that I'm not beautiful enough, that I'm not sensual enough, that I'm not powerful enough, that I'm not enough. I just feel like I'm everything and more in my heels. And sensual healing and the woman of sensual healing, both like my classes, my workshops, my company, they give back just as much as I give to them. And as much as I heal them, they heal me. And it's just such an incredibly powerful exchange of female energy. I'm not excluding my men, but it's predominantly female energy. And you don't see that in everyday life. You don't see people or women specifically supporting each other, genuinely supporting each other. And like my classrooms, I can only speak for myself. Everybody feels like a superstar. Everybody feels like nothing is unattainable, both in the classroom and as soon as they leave that classroom. And that's the most important thing, is that my heels classes allow my students, both women and men, to feel like, hey, if you can do this in a pair of stilettos in an hour, imagine what you can do in your whole lifetime. If you faced your fears in an hour, less than an hour, because let's face it, we do 15 minutes warm up. So 45 minutes, if you can face your vulnerabilities, face your fears, face your insecurities in front of a group of strangers that you just met, you can do anything in real life. And so I just don't know how to explain heels classes. You got to experience it yourself, and you walk out a whole lighter, transformed version of yourself. It's not like I change you. I just allow you to see the real version of yourself, the truest version of yourself that you've been hiding, that you've been protecting because you're like, ooh, if I say this or I do this or I wear this or I act this way, I'm not enough. And I'm like, no. You are like perfectly imperfect. So that's what heels training is, heels classes, what a pair of heels feels to me. It's a whole experience and then some.
Perfect segue into our next question, because you mentioned sensual healing. So, how did sensual start We've, you just had your finale show not too long ago. You've been running the company for about, what, 5 years? 5 years, right?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to walk you through a timeline because it's crazy.
Let's do it.
I couldn't even believe how long it has been. So, I started with Hollywood in 2012. February 2012 was my first Urban-esque show. And then Urban-esque's last show I did with them was March 2014. So 2 years I was with Hollywood. And then Hollywood took a break, as we know, right? And that was really difficult. That was super, super difficult again, I can speak on my behalf. It was super hard on me because I just loved dancing with those women. Like Lauren Lynn, Jonah Abrams, Allison Bradley, AC Mensa, Sajin, Charlene, Kelsey. Like, I know I'm missing a whole bunch of people, but like, they're just beasts. When you stepped, not even on stage with those women, when you stepped into a rehearsal with those women, you had to step all the way up. And so I missed that. I missed feeling like I missed that push. And so in August 2014, right? So a couple months later, Urban-esque show was March 2014. August 2014, I decided to do like a pop-up class. And I had no intentions of having a regular time slot, being a regular teacher, starting workshops, or a company. I know a lot of people think that was my intention. It never was a vision. I just wanted to dance. And so I did my first pop-up at Right Foots. Shout out to David Forzo. And yeah, that was crazy to me. I was like, I don't even know if anybody's going to show up. And I was like, I'm okay if no one shows up. It's totally fine. Like, I just want to get into the studio and dance. I literally just wanted space to dance and create. So I had my first pop-up and I did have people come. I had 6 people. Jonah Abrams was one of them. Sajin, Gigi was there, and Nicole Rosav. There was a couple more girls, but those are the 3 that I remember who were in my first pop-up heels class. And then after that happened, David was like, hey, do you want a regular time slot? And I was like, okay, let's do this. And at that time, like OIP was around and Right Foot pretty much. And Right Foot's clientele was like mostly urban. It was like not a heel scene, right? But I didn't care. I was like, he gave me an opportunity to explore my artistry, and that was enough for me. I wasn't expecting to have this big following or anything. I literally just wanted to get in the studio with my girls. That was it. So I started my classes at Right Foot. And when I tell you, I had no one for a long time. Jonah always came whenever she could. I'm getting like teary-eyed thinking about it because it's so crazy of like where it's brought me. But you best believe I use that studio space. If I had no one, I did not let that make me feel like that was a loss. I was like, okay, well, Kaela, you created choreography. So get your butt into that studio and start figuring out how you're going to teach these steps. Figure out how your choreography and your movement feels on you. Figure out how you're going to break this down if someone asks you a question. Figure out what you have to offer that's so different than everybody else, right? I think that was really important to me. Like my steps don't look anything like Hollywood's, right? We have very different ways of moving, and that's incredible. Because if I were to go and start my own heels class that was just Hollywood Jade movements, then there's already a Hollywood Jade, right? And that's so powerful. Like, why would I want to create steps that are all him? So I really used that time to find my voice and find my creativity and find how I was going to make the class wholeheartedly Kaela Faloon. So I think that's really important. Like, don't get defeated when no one comes to your class. You've got free studio space. And in Toronto, free studio space does not come that often. And then if you do have people, don't disregard that one or two people are in your class. Like those people specifically dedicated their time and energy to spend it with you. And so I made sure that I brought the energy despite who was in my class, because to me, I had people that wanted to train with me, and it was a chance for me to keep on developing my voice. So I had my class at Right Foot. Then I subbed at the Underground in October 2014. I think I subbed for Irvin Washington or George Apsey. I'm just dropping names so you guys know all my history. So I subbed their class, and it was an afternoon class. Afternoon classes, if you know, in Toronto, don't bring out the biggest following, right? It's not like a New York here, but I didn't care. Like, I just wanted to keep on practicing my teaching skills. So I subbed the class at the Underground, and after I was done, Aaron and Leon at the time pulled me into their office, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, why am I getting pulled into the office? And I think they gave me like the best compliment. They were like, you're so passionate. Like we've never experienced someone with your teaching styles, like the way you dedicate all of yourself to your students. And in that class that I subbed, there was maybe 2 students, right? Again, like I just deliver all of me despite who's in my class, despite the numbers. And so they were like, we really, really would like you to join faculty. And so October 2014 is when I got my first Wednesday time slot at the Underground. And I had been there for 6 years, right? So I just recently gave my time slot up in the new year, January 2020. And I was in the View, the smaller studio in the Underground. And again, I built that brand up. So I taught it the Underground starting in October 2014. December 2014, I put on my first choreo ball piece to Marvin Gaye's Sexual Healing, as most of you guys know. Again, this is before I had my branding or anything. And so that was pretty exciting and scary at the same time to put my work on a very legendary stage. Mm-hmm. And then it was, oh my goodness, it was how long after that? So I continued to teach at the Underground following choreo ball piece and everything. And a year and a half later, that's when I branded Sensual Healing. And the reason it started is because I wanted more time. It's always been more time. People are like, oh, you must have had a vision and known what you wanted and had it all planned out. I'm very last minute. If you know me, I'm very, very last minute. It just started off with, I wanted more time with my students. An hour wasn't enough. An hour and a half wasn't enough. And so I started workshop series, which at the time, no one was doing workshops in Toronto. Definitely internationally, but no one was doing like programs. There was companies, but no one was doing programs for like students, because some people can't commit to a full 6 months to a year, or like financially can't commit, right? Mm-hmm. And so at that time I was like, well, I want to train my beginners to give them an opportunity to get to an intermediate advanced level. I want them to have that opportunity, but with like no strings attached. Like some of them don't want to be on stage. Some of them have full-time jobs. They just are so passionate about it and they want to learn the techniques. So I want to give them an opportunity to have more time with me to reach those goals. So that's how Sensual Healing started. Obviously, the name came from Marvin Gaye's Sexual Healing song, but I didn't want my company to have the word sex in it. And I changed the healing, the A to an E. And my movement quality is sensual. So I was like, how about Sensual Healing? And I didn't know. I was hesitant at first. I was like, oh, I don't know. Is this corny? You start doubting whether it's going to be a hit or a miss. Mm-hmm. And then I started branding my package. I filmed a whole concept video promoting the launch of Sensual Healing, the description and what my intentions were with the workshops, what the students would be getting out of it. And then it started from there, and it became a huge success. And I still have my day one students with me, which is insane. Some of those students have now become company members, and Sensual Healing Company started because, again, I wanted even more time. I was like, 2 hours isn't enough. I want 4 hours. And I'm like, now these workshop students, they've been training with me for, well, that was how many years? A year and a half. So they've been training with me a year and a half since Sensual Healing launched. I'm like, now they need a new opportunity to like perform and for people to see their growth. And that's why Sensual Healing Company started, because I was like, okay, my little babies are not so much babies anymore. They're full grown women, and they are ready for me to push them at another level with other like-minded women and talented women. And that's why Sensual Healing Company, that's how it started.
Nice.
Yeah.
Were there any other heels companies before Sensual Healing?
Yes, there were. So there's Carla Catherwood, right? Known as Army of Sass right now, but it was Nouveau Burlesque at that time. So she had her heels company going on. Hollywood Jade, obviously with Urbanesque. Angela Mahoney Jones had the Cast Heels edition at that time, and now it's Hot in Heels. Tamina had the Girls Club. Then Tamina got pretty busy, booked and blessed. And Monica Gold started her whole Find Your Fierce movement. And then came Sensual Healing. Yeah, so it's pretty incredible. The movement of heels in Toronto. It's pretty phenomenal that we do have such a strong community of men and women teaching heels. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I love about each heels company, past and present, is that they were all different, right? And they all had something different to offer.
Absolutely.
Now, before I guess earlier on, you had decided, or you were coming up with a name for your company, and you didn't want, the word sex to be,
the forefront.
Yeah, exactly. So, the question that I think a lot of people are wondering is, why do you think people associate heels with sexuality rather than, sensuality, empowerment, vulnerability?
I have a couple reasons. First off, because they've never stepped foot into a heels class. So they've never been immersed in it. And they just assume that it's all about sex because that's what they visually see, right? And that's just being naive, right? So that would be my first explanation. They've never been in a heels class. Which you should, if you're listening, definitely immerse yourself into it. Maybe secondly, they have attended a heels class, but it was heavily focused on sex, right? Like that was the forefront. Maybe the teacher was promoting like, you should be doing this for your significant other. You should be wearing these clothes because you will be more, you'll be more likable, right? Or you'll seem, you'll feel more pretty, or you know what I mean? That they'll put the sex as the forefront in the sense that like when you feel this way, you'll achieve what you want in life, or you'll get that partner, you'll get that job, or you get these opportunities because, sex runs everything. Yeah.
Well, sex sells. Well, I mean, I think that was a saying for a long time, right?
Right. But what is sexy? Right? I think someone that just like knows who they are is sexy. And I say this, I've used this example in class. Have you ever just been attracted to someone and they're not your type, let's say? They're not your type, but they just have something about them that you're like, damn, you're sexy. It's just because they don't apologize for who they are. They're like, it is what it is. Yeah. I am who I am. I wear what I want. I do what I want. I say what I want. And you're like, that is attractive, right? And so I tell people that in class, it's like, that's what is sexy. You being you is sexy. Stop trying to fit in these boxes of what you think is sexy, because you're going to be running around your whole life trying to please people instead of just being yourself and pleasing yourself. So yeah, like that. I know people think that heels classes is all about sexy. Yes, sexiness and sensuality is a part of it, but it's not the driving force. My students are the driving force. Me making sure that they are tapping into their greatness, their assets. I always am like, what makes you stand out? What makes you special? What qualities do you have that no one else has? Start thinking about it that way. Mm-hmm. A lot of your imperfections is what makes you stand out. And we try to hide our imperfections, but that's exactly why you're here, is because that is your driving force of what makes you special and what makes you different. No one wants to be the same. Being the same as people is so boring. No one successful was the same. Like, that's not why people are successful. They saw what their assets were and ran with it. Or they knew they didn't fit in and they're like, well, might as well run with that. Like, fitting in is just so easy and so boring. So I think people have this stigma about heels classes being just like overtly sexual, just because, like I said, yeah, they've never stepped foot in a class, or they've had a bad experience, or their own personal struggles, right? Struggles or insecurities with their sexuality or sensuality. And seeing another woman or man being so comfortable with their sensual side can trigger them because they're too like shy themselves or scared or uncomfortable to do the same. So they deflect their insecurities onto these women or men who are attending these heels classes. And it ends up just being a defense mechanism because they're like, oh, well, I wish I could do that. But instead of like asking people questions about, hey, what's the class about? Like, when are the classes? When do you go? I would love to attend with you. Instead of asking questions about the class, they kind of deflect their negative energy towards it and just kind of wrap it up and be like, well, I can't do that because that's what it is. And I don't agree with that. And I don't agree with women dressing like that. And I don't agree with the message that you deliver in your class. And it's like, no. Like, those are your insecurities. Don't put those on me, but let me help you figure out like why you're feeling this way. You know, maybe they're dealing with a lot of traumas, personal experiences from relationships, childhood upbringings, right? There's sex and sensuality is a huge topic that can trigger a lot of people. And when you see someone so comfortably demonstrating it, it can make you feel certain ways, right? So I think those would be the three reasons that I think that people have like a negative stigma towards heels classes. But I just want people to know that it's so much more than that. It's all about finding out who you are, finding out what your weaknesses are, finding out what your insecurities are, finding out what triggers you, what makes you uncomfortable, what makes you jealous, what makes you not want to compliment someone, what makes you hide in the back, what makes you want to come forward. There's so many things you can learn, not just in heels classes and dance classes, because you are forced to be vulnerable as soon as you walk in that door. And I think that's what people have to realize. It's just another style of dance. You're seeing the same thing in hip hop classes and jazz funk classes. You're seeing people dance to explicit lyrics, doing more sexual or sensual movement, but because they're in baggier clothes, it's okay. Why is it okay? What's wrong with someone dressed a little bit differently but expressing the same quality of movement, the same intention? Why do you feel uncomfortable because someone is a little bit less dressed? Or why do you feel like someone that is more dressed is less sexy? I think there's so many.
Yeah, there's so many.
There's so many conversations to be had, and it has a lot to do with what media portrays as sexy, right? And like I said, going back to the beginning, I think someone is so sexy when they are just themselves. And I get to see that on a daily in my classes. I get to see everyday women, everyday men come in and just be themselves. And I'm like, damn, you realize I was so sexy? And they're like, who, me? Like they're looking behind, like I'm pointing to someone else behind them. And I'm like, no, you. Like when you just stopped thinking and just let go and didn't give a crap about what I thought about you, what you thought about you, and what other people in the class thought about you, that's when that good shit comes out. That's when your intention's in the right place, but you're not seeking for attention. You know, intention over attention always.
Yeah.
I hope I answered that question, but that's a huge, huge topic that I used to be really sensitive about. I used to be uncomfortable telling people that I taught heels classes, and I would try to like cover it up and make it seem like it was less than it was, right? And then I stopped. I was like, wait, why? Why do I have to apologize to make you feel comfortable? It's not my responsibility to make you feel comfortable. If you're uncomfortable, that's on you.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let my light dim because you're uncomfortable. I love what I do. I'm proud of what I do. I love my women. I love my classes. I love what I stand for. And I shouldn't have to apologize for that. Whether I'm half naked or fully clothed.
Can you briefly talk about your mentorship style? Do you have any core values or philosophies as a mentor or a teacher? Yeah.
So when I first began my teaching journey, the thing I despised the most about the dance industry was how toxic it was, and how people in authority felt the need to be so condescending and disrespectful to get results. And not everybody, right? But I just had some experiences that they just didn't sit well with me, and they stuck with me for a while and were quite damaging to me as a woman and me as a dancer. And so I made a point to ensure that my classroom setting, my workshop setting, and my company setting was a safe environment. And when I mean safe, like safe encompasses a lot of things, right? I wanted my students to feel comfortable with me in communicating anything that they were uncomfortable with, and vice versa, me being able to have open lines of communication with my students, my company members, and also reiterating things that made me uncomfortable with their behaviors or their actions. And I wanted them to feel that I was pushing them, but respectfully. You don't have to be an asshole to get results. You don't have to be disrespectful. You don't have to treat people poorly. You don't have to act like you are above or below anybody. We're all equals. And so when I teach and I mentor my women, I make them very well aware that I might be an authority figure with them in this setting, but I'm human, and that I will never treat them with disrespect. And if I do, if they feel uncomfortable with things, I would hope that they would have open lines of communication with me. But if you've been in my classrooms or my workshops or my company, like you see the relationship that I have with my students and my company members. Like we know how to have fun, but we also know how to get work done. And so I just make sure that, we have a mutual respect for each other. That was my main thing. I just didn't like walking into classrooms and feeling that toxic energy, feeling like if I made a mistake that I would get yelled at, feeling like I couldn't be free to explore who I was. Because if I'm not making mistakes and I'm not messing up and I'm not having hiccups, I'm not growing. And that's what class is all about. I want to see you make mistakes, and I want to see how you're going to recover from that mistake. I want to see you just risk it all on the dance floor. Just be vulnerable, because that's where your best artistry lies. And so like my morals and values is like respect, communication, and understand that I'm going to push you. I don't care what level you're at, beginner, intermediate, advanced. I am going to push you to be the best version of yourself. I do not settle for mediocre from anybody, especially myself. So if I'm setting a standard for myself, you best believe if you're under my wing, I expect the same work ethic as me. More. I want you to come for my buff. I tell my students this all the time. If you are excelling me, I've done my job. But you best believe I'm going to try not to let you excel me because I need to be on my toes. Like, I want my students to push me. I want my students to elevate me. I want my students to motivate and inspire me. I'm doing my job right if they are coming from, I was going to say a swear word, but if they're coming for me, right? So those are my core values and philosophies as a teacher. Just be a good person. I know people think that when you reach a certain status, you're allowed to act a certain way. Hell no. Because it just doesn't work that way. Humble yourself. Be a good person. Treat people with respect. Because I promise you, those people that you treated poorly are going to be the next person to hire you. They're going to be your boss one day. And people don't think about it that way. That's not my mentality. I'm not like, oh, I'm just treating people with respect because what happens if they get a job and I need to be on it? No, I just, like I said before, I'm genuinely that type of person. But also just like, we're humans. Just treat people kindly. Create an environment that is welcoming. I want my students to feel like welcome to my classrooms. I don't want them to feel like, oh, there's Kaela and her sensual healing company and like it's segregated. No. Just because my company members are at the front of the class with me, most of the time they don't know the choreography. They're learning it on the spot as well. But I want it to feel like a family. Just because you're not part of my company does not mean you don't get to be part of Sensual Healing Sisterhood. Whether you're new or old, like you mean something to me. You're of value to me. You're not just a number in my classroom. You're not just a paycheck. I respect you and I want you to respect me. And I want you to respect my classroom. And I want you to respect for what I stand for. And I want you to respect my work ethic. And if you don't, and my class is not for you, that is totally okay. Because there is a classroom and there is a mentor and there is a teacher that is suitable for you. And I've understood that. Some people pass through my classroom and not return, and that's okay because I can't be everybody's mentor. I can't be everybody's teacher. Not everybody was my mentor and teacher, right? I had a specific few people that worked with me, that made me, that pushed me, that saw something in me, right? And so I just like run my classrooms how I want to take a class. I built my classrooms as if I was taking it as a student. And that's always been my mentality. If you were a student in this classroom, Kaela, how did you feel like you did today? If you were a student or an audience member, how do you feel like that show was? Did you give your best? Or was it kind of like mediocre today, right? So checking in with yourself and being realistic with yourself as well when you're on that side of the spectrum. And I think that's what I always tell my students. I'm like, I'm forever and always will be a student. Don't get it twisted. Just because I'm up here teaching you steps doesn't mean I don't know what it feels like to be on that other side. And I know exactly what's going through your head right now. And I know exactly insecurities and doubts that you're allowing in your head. Let's cut it out and let's have a good class. Let's make mistakes. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's practice on the sides. Let's elevate ourselves and let's come out on the dance floor and deliver a good class so that you leave today feeling like you gave all of yourself to yourself, not to me, not to the other students, only to yourself. And like, that's a Kaela Faloon classroom experience for you.
Now, this next question, came in from one of our followers and someone who, regularly takes your class. Do you have any advice for men who want to move sensually?
This is such a good question because predominantly heels classes are run by females, right? Obviously, but Hollywood Jade is a male heels teacher. And I think the best advice I would give these men is get into these classes, right? Even though it is a female teacher, get into these classes and start exercising your sensuality. Try to just figure out your movement quality for yourself first. Then start seeing if there's other men in the classroom that you're seeing. Maybe not in heels classes, but maybe in jazz funk classes, right? And I would reach out to them. Like, hey, I know you may not know me, but I'm really trying to explore my sensuality as a male. And I would love to have an accountability partner or someone to take classes with so that we can kind of check in with each other and figure out, hey, how does this sit on your body as a male? Because it's completely different. And I wish that I could break things down for a male, but that's just not realistic. I'm a female, so I only know what I've got. But it is important to not neglect the men in my class. So definitely try to get an accountability group going, reach out to other men that dance sensually, start taking classes together, start giving each other feedback, start studying each other, watching each other, complimenting each other. I know a lot of my female company members, but workshop students, they rent out studio space sometimes, or they have like space in their apartments or condos, and they'll start practicing the choreography that they learned in my classes, like outside of class. And they'll watch each other, film each other, give each other feedback, and like finesse the choreography. And I think it's genius. I'm like, oh my gosh, like you guys are not even taking dance seriously, right? These women are like lawyers, doctors, real estate agents. Like they just have such a passion for dance, but they dedicate that extra time in working with each other and finessing things and really trying to like grow together. So I tell the men to start doing that, rent space with other men. And okay, you're not a choreographer, right? But you've taken the class together, go practice that choreography, film it, be on each other's case and like pointing your feet, stretching your legs. Also start researching other men that you enjoy watching, right? And technical men, because heels, there is a technique to heels. And I know a lot of people are like, they just want to slap a pair of heels on, but you have to have ballet and jazz technique. There is a foundation to heels. So start researching men that are technical in their heels. Yannis Marshall is incredible. His technique is incredible. And he has so many men in his class. And he always tags the men. So I've done it. I'm like, ooh, who's this new guy? Tap the name. Then you're on this new person's page and you're just immersed in their movement, right? So men, start using the internet, using your tools to your advantage, and start researching other men that you admire and you respect and that you appreciate their art and their way of movement, and start seeing how you can study them and implement it in your body, but in your own way. Because understand that they are them and you are you, and you're never going to look exactly like someone. But I call it like stealing, right? It's like free stealing. Like you're watching someone and they're giving you knowledge for free. So study it, take the time and dedicate time to studying these people and then applying it to yourself. Because I know that there's not a huge heels community of men here doing things. So this is a phenomenal question. And that's what I would start doing right now. Find men to dance with, make an accountability group, do your research, find men that you like admire and look up to, study them, practice like in your own space. And then maybe if there's enough of you, start making trips to where these teachers are teaching. Reach out to them, be like, hey, Yannis, there's 20 of us men coming to LA or New York or wherever he travels. We would love to book a private. Like it's all up to you. Anything is possible. Like if you want to train and you want to see progress and you want to see growth, you got to make the plans in order to make that happen. Save the money, right? Like make a plan to execute it so that you can benefit from the tools and the education and the mentors that are out there.
Now we're going to talk about something a little bit more recent, and I do want to revert back to season 1, because in episode 5, I had Sarah Callie Francis on the show. And I asked her about her O1 visa process.
Okay.
And you being the recipient of someone who just recently received their O1 visa process. Obviously, the process isn't the same for everyone.
Right.
So can you briefly talk about your visa process, and were there any hardships that you experienced during your application?
Absolutely. I started the process in June of 2019. That's when I sent the email out to my lawyers. And it was a long and tedious process. People had warned me about it. And basically saying that you have to dedicate time every day to working on it. And I was like, okay. So by the time my lawyers got back to me and we started the process, it was like, I would say August. August is when I officially started. They sent me all the information, and you have 30 to 45 days for my lawyers to submit the best of the best work, right? So they tell you to pick like your top 10, 15 projects and organize everything and send it to them. So I'm talking pictures, wristbands, programs, emails don't count, but just any proof that you've worked on these projects. So I organized it all in 15 days. Like I was not messing around, right? I was like, I want this. I'm organized. I camped out at a coffee shop for like hours. I would get there at 9 a.m., stay till close. Like I was determined to get this approved in November. That was my initial date. I was like, okay, I want it to be approved in November. They're like, yeah, no problem. Handed everything in. And I just don't think they had worked with someone that was that efficient. And so once it was submitted, there's a little bit of a waiting time because then they have to go through and they pick your top 3 projects. So they figure out, okay, you submitted 10. These are our top 3. And then from there, you have to, get letters of recommendation. You also have to have, they're called deal memos. You have to have work lined up for you out in the States, which is so hard because you're like, how am I supposed to get work lined up when I don't have my visa? It's like a catch-22, right? Mm-hmm. Luckily, I had been taking a lot of trips back and forth to the States. So I had built connections over the past 6 years, right? It's not something I was just like, oh, okay, I want my visa. And then, okay, now who am I going to reach out to, right? That's a huge part of your visa is you have to have built relationships. And again, genuine relationships. I didn't go out to the States being like, I'm going to network with these people because my intention is to get my visa and I want to use them for my visa. No, I genuinely built relationships with Jessica Castro, who I've attended all of her Lipstick Diaries workshops and League of Her Own, right? And then I built a relationship with Maya, the artist. I've been on tour with her in Australia. When she comes to Toronto, I dance for her, right? I had built relationships with Mel Charlot, who is like Rhapsody James' like right-hand girl, who's a huge part of Monsters, right? And so I built genuine relationships with these people so that when it was time for me to ask for help, they were like, absolutely, Kaela. So I think that's really important that your intentions are in the right place because a lot of people, their intention is just for visas or to book a job or to be on that music video. And that's unhealthy. I would hate to be a choreographer and know that that's your only intention to be around me. Of course I'm going to feel used. Of course I don't want to use you. Like I have more to offer than just a job. I'm a human, right? So I built human relationships and connections with these people because I admired them and I looked up to them and I respected them. So my deal memos were those 3 incredible women. And then you have to get like a business sponsor. So my lawyer sets that up for you. So I had a sponsor that vouched for me. And so the process just took long because it's very tedious and you have to submit everything and collect everything. And then you're reading the letters of reference, making sure that everything is solidified. So the process took a lot longer than I expected, right? And I could have felt defeated by that. And I could have felt like, oh my God, it's not going to happen, right? But I was like, no, it's happening. Everything just felt right this year. Well, 2019, everything didn't feel right. If I'm going to be honest, my whole life came crashing down. Everything that I imagined my life to be was not there anymore. I went through relationship, like a breakup, which is tough. I was going through family stuff. And then meanwhile, I was going through the hardships of this like visa. And so I was like at my all-time low. I felt very alone. I felt very lost. I felt like I didn't know my direction. But I needed that all to be stripped away so that I was alone with myself. And I was alone with my thoughts. And I was able to really start redefining who Kaela Faloon is. What does Kaela Faloon want? Who is Kaela Faloon, the person, not the dancer, not the artist? Who is she? What does she like? What does she dislike? What triggers her? What makes her anxious? What frustrates her? What makes her angry? What makes her happy, right? Like, I just did a lot of self-work this year. And so I was able to stay patient, calm, and faithful throughout this whole process. So when the lawyers were taking longer than anticipated, I was like, it's okay. I need this time with Kaela Faloon. I need this time with me. I need to get back into my faith. I got really back into my faith. I started seeing a therapist. Highly recommend therapists. It's so, so important. I know there's like a weird stigma around therapy, but it's been the best decision and the best investment in myself. Like, I've learned so much about myself. And I needed to do all that work to be prepared for my visa to be approved. Because I'm going into LA, a whole market of the best of the best. And if I don't know that I'm the best of the best as well, then how am I going to survive? So I stayed patient. I was working on my visa heavily, but also working on myself equally or as more heavily. So I was dedicating hours to myself and hours to my visa and really, really, really making sure I was doing the work so I was ready. That's when I started announcing my farewell workshops in November. End of November, I said, peace out, Toronto. I'm leaving you. Without a yes. I had no approval, nothing. People were asking me questions. I replaced if with whens. Like, I completely removed doubt from my mind because I'm like, if I don't believe this, it is not going to happen. And so what if it doesn't happen either? Right? Like, I was like, it's okay if it doesn't happen. But I was like, it is going to happen because it feels right. So I announced my goodbye workshops. I was about to head home for Christmas. My company members were like, hey, Kaela, we want to do a company show with you. We want to hit the stage one more time with you. I was like, okay, are we doing this? Are we putting a show together in 3 weeks? They're like, Kaela, we've done this before. I'm like, all right, here we go. So then we started planning my sensual healing show. When I say I'm a last minute girl, I'm a last minute girl and I make it happen. Because when I commit to something, there's no way in hell it's not going to happen. So then we started prepping for my sensual healing farewell show. Then I gave away my underground classes. Goodbye, underground. There goes my income, right? So like, I stopped my workshops. I stopped my underground classes. I put on my farewell show, still without a yes. And my lawyer told me in January my visa would be approved. They sent me an email saying, hey, things are backed up because of the holidays. We need this union letter in order to file your case. Like, you need this union letter. I was like, okay, well, how long is that going to take? This is end of January right now. So I'm like, I'm about to move out of my apartment as well. They're like, it could take probably like a week to 2 weeks, but we don't want to pressure them because if you put too much pressure, then they'll put your case to the bottom of the file. I'm like, okay. I'm like, pressure them just enough, okay? Just like lightly, gently remind them that I need this letter. They're like, I know, we're doing our best. So I was like, okay, clearly, Kaela, you need more time. Like, you need more time. You're not ready to leave. You haven't moved out of your apartment yet. You still have goodbyes to say to your family. You still have stuff to do. So I kept on being like, it's okay. Stay faithful, stay patient. You still have work to do. I wrote down in my agenda that it was Monday, February 8th, that I would get my union letter. And I prayed hard. I was like, God, that letter is coming in on Monday. Monday comes around, I get an email from my lawyer. Hey, Kaela, we just want to let you know that your union letter has come in and we're just going to review your case just to make sure that all the final touches are there, and then we'll file it. And I was like, okay. She's like, well, you'll hear back from us in a couple days. A week rolls around, more than a week. I'm like, okay, they haven't filed my case yet. Like, I'm like, okay, stay patient. It's fine. I'm moving out of my apartment this day. It's a Tuesday. I'm packing up my place, saying goodbye to my roommate, packing up, rented a car to drive everything home, saying my goodbye to my family, still without a yes. No yes, no approval. I'm homeless. At this point, I'm homeless. I wrote in my agenda, Friday, February 21st, you're going to get a yes. Like, bold letters. That is when your approval is coming in. Say my goodbyes to my family, come back to Toronto. My lovely friend Nathaniel let me move into her place. I'm living in Mississauga. It's a week, right? you have 15 days. I paid the premium price. I have 15 days from when it was filed to get a yes. Okay. So when I move out of my apartment with Lauren, they told me that they filed it. So from that marker, I had 15 days. And that is the hardest 15 days ever. Because you're like, any second right now, I could be getting an email. And I'm hoping that it's the response that I've been praying so hard for. So 10 days comes around. It's Friday, February 21st, Toronto. I put it in my agenda. That I was getting that approval. Nothing comes through. And you know what? I didn't even notice. I was like, it's okay. It's like, fine. I still have a couple more days, 5 more days. I'm good. I had launched that. I was doing another breakup workshop. Like I had launched all those things. So I was still keeping busy. Saturday morning, I wake up at 7 a.m. because I was going to go to the gym just to make sure, just to check what time it was. So I got an email from my lawyer, 5 a.m. Toronto time, saying, congratulations, Kaela. You have been approved for 3 years. And it was so crazy because I was in my bed half asleep and I just imagined the approval being different for some reason, but it was so perfect. It was just me and myself and me being proud of myself. I had tears in my eyes and I just said a prayer and I thanked God. And it was a moment for me. It didn't need to be celebrated with anybody else but me. I think that's so important. We are so quick to advertise our wins, but the only person that needs it advertising to is yourself. And it was so special. I was like, this is the perfect way to find out in the simplest, most organic, most surprising way. I rolled over to start my day and I received an approval, and it's still surreal. But if I can, my advice to anybody is just stay faithful and understand that everything happens for a reason. I know that saying is said so many times, but it's true. I wanted this in November. I wasn't ready in November. That was only a couple months ago, and I've grown so much. Mentally, have grown so much. I needed that extra time to grow, to process, to be prepared. So you have to have strong faith in the unknown, and you gotta believe yourself and trust yourself and know that you are great first and foremost. Because if not, then you aren't ready to receive those blessings. And I just kept on reiterating those affirmations to myself every day. Kaela, you've been wanting this for 6 years. You've been preparing for this for 6 years. You've been doing extreme work this past year to make sure that when you go, that you're ready to receive. Because I would have hated to go to LA when I was younger and just not be ready and just mess it up. Either with just being immature and irresponsible and not professional and working with the best of the best and not even understanding and knowing that they're the best of the best. And I had a lot of people doubt my decision. But Kaela, you have something so great here in Toronto. You're just going to give it all up? What am I giving up? I'm just elevating. I'm not giving up anything. I'm just pushing myself and pushing my brand to new levels. I can't live a life of being comfortable. And I know that I would look back with such disappointment in myself if I just didn't take the risk. And what's the worst that's going to happen? Literally, I think people are so afraid of what people are going to think.
Yeah.
I don't care what you guys think. I'm pursuing my dreams. I'm pursuing my goals. If you're going to judge me on coming back, what's wrong in coming back? I explored. I learned something in the time being. If I ever return, I'm coming back a newer, elevated version of myself. And people have such fear of what people will think. And that's something I've removed. Again, strong mental foundation. Stop worrying what people are going to think. I literally announced to the whole world that I had a yes before I did. And I also was prepared to tell people if I didn't get it approved. I was like, Kaela, are you prepared to announce that you didn't get it approved if that is the case? And I was like, yeah, I am. Because then that's my story. That's my journey. That there's a reason why it didn't get approved. There's something that I still need to fulfill here in Canada. So I think that's really important, is just standing strong and stop worrying. You're not bringing these people with you for the rest of your life. And the real ones know what's up.
Yeah.
The real ones are there for you despite it all, through thick and thin. So like, why are you worried about the people that really, truly don't have your best interests at heart? So I really just hope that this inspires not just dancers, just humans. Just freaking go for things and stop worrying about the outcome. Because the right outcome will be for you.
Yeah. What will you miss most about Toronto?
I will miss my students. Oh, I knew this was going to happen. Oh, I'm getting like teary-eyed. Whew. Yeah, just, they are just like the world to me. And just as much as like I've inspired them, they've inspired me. Sensual healing has like, it's developed me as a woman, as a dancer, as an artist, as a choreographer. I didn't ever imagine it to be so impactful to my students, and like especially to me. It's been like the craziest roller coaster ride. It's trained me like no other. It's motivated me, inspired me, it's challenged me, it's hurt me. Yeah, it's definitely hurt me. It's humbled me. It's elevated me, and it's brought me to where I am now. And I'm just so grateful for my students, because they've just truly shown me what my life purpose is. And they've truly like heightened and elevated my greatness. And that's the scariest part about going on this new journey, is like, I'm like, what's my purpose now without my students? What's my purpose without sensual healing, right? And so it's like, it's scary. It's so scary, but it's super exciting. And it's time to continue to push myself and dive deeper into who I am and what I stand for. Because clearly I've capped out here in Toronto. And like, as soon as you get comfortable, there's always something major in your life that happens. Like 2019, it was like, major thing after major thing after major thing to make me feel so uncomfortable that I had no choice but to step up. I don't think I would have pushed for my visa if 2019 didn't pan out the way it did. If everything didn't crumble, I don't think I would have pursued it, which is so scary to think about. So I'm just happy with how everything played out, but I'm definitely going to miss my students. I'm going to miss that classroom. I'm going to miss that energy, but it's my responsibility to take that with me wherever I go now, and hopefully inspire the next group of people that I'm surrounded by, whether that's huge major artists or fellow dancers or people that are not in the dance industry. I have a responsibility to keep inspiring people and sharing my knowledge and sharing my journey, sharing my weaknesses, sharing my strengths, because that's why we're all here. None of us have it perfect, but we all have the perfect pieces to build the puzzle if we come together and selfishly or unselfishly help each other out, right? So Toronto has treated me really well, and I'm thankful for everybody that's been a part of my journey. You know who you are. Even if you don't know who you are, you don't think, just know I know, right? Like I always respect everybody that's helped me on my journey, and no one has helped me out more or less. Everything has been such a true testament to my journey. So I just want to thank Toronto. I want to thank my students. I want to thank my fellow dancers, choreographers, everybody that's believed in me, everybody who hasn't believed in me. It's all good. It all has helped me to where I am right now. So saying goodbye is not easy. That's why it's been the longest breakup ever.
I just want to end the episode there, but I'm going to give you a minute. Yeah. All right. We're on the home stretch. Now, for season 1, there was always that one question where I'd ask, if you could look back at little Kaela 5 years ago, what would you tell her? For this season, it's a little different, but part of the Dance Plug's mandate is to elevate people, right? So by doing that, we want to ask, if you could give one challenge to dancers this year, what would it be?
Yeah, well, I feel like you've heard me say this, but I want dancers to work on themselves on a personal level, working from the inside out, like stripping away all the negativity that they're harboring. Because I would love to say, go support someone's event. Go support someone's class. Promote someone besides your friend on Instagram. Take a style that makes you feel so vulnerable, right? But how can I ask that of you if you haven't healed yourself? If you haven't done the internal work? If you haven't figured out what triggers you? Why do you feel jealous when people book jobs? Why do you get upset that someone has a class before you, or is teaching or hosting workshops? Why are you upset that that person's event sold out? Why are you upset that that person's workshop sold out? Why are those things affecting you, right? And so what I've discovered this year is like, you got to build your personal foundation first. You got to make sure that you are mentally okay. And I mean that in the best way possible, like, so that the little things don't upset you, and so that you do have room for other people. You have room to support yourself and support someone else. You have room to be happy for yourself and happy for someone else. You have room to see yourself succeed and be friggin' so excited that someone else succeeding. Because like, if you don't work on yourself and you aren't happy with yourself, then how can I ask you to take on a challenge that makes you feel so uncomfortable? And so I think that's the big thing. We always are like, self-love and love yourself and be confident and just put yourself out there and be vulnerable. But like, those are just words. You have to put in the work and the actions in order to reap those benefits. So my challenge for dancers is just figure out who you are, figure out what you want, figure out if you're willing to put in the work to be successful in this industry. Because I told you, it is a hard and toxic, and it can be a very damaging industry to be in if you don't got your head on your shoulders and you don't walk out of your house every day being like, I've got all the tools I need to be successful. So I just want dancers to really work on themselves and really find what makes themselves so special and unique, so that when they are challenged with other people that are special and unique, maybe a little bit more special and unique, that they don't feel like that there isn't enough room for them as well. Because there's so much room in this industry. There's so much. And if we just all understood that and healed and worked together, Toronto could be the new LA. Toronto could be that place where, hey, I'm getting my visa for where? For Toronto, Canada. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can't challenge you to do all these crazy things if you haven't challenged yourself to face yourself in the mirror and figure out what you need to work on. Because if you can't work on yourself and you can't support yourself, then how am I able to ask you to support and encourage and compliment and be inspired by the other incredible and phenomenal artists in this industry? So Toronto, you have some work to do. And it's continuous.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I'm forever working on myself, and it's super, super exciting. And I've definitely seen the benefits of it. My visa is a huge testament to it, but it's all possible. And Toronto has the most talented individuals I've ever met. And I just want us to all succeed. I want to see us all at the top. And I want to be able to support all of you and say, I told you so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Before we end off, were there any final remarks that you'd want to add?
Oh, I feel like I always have so much to say. But just be good people. Work incredibly hard. Understand your power and your greatness. And don't ever be defeated. Because everything happens for a reason. And everything that is meant for you will find you. And I'm wishing everybody an incredibly successful and healthy and prosperous, not just 2020, but every day from this day forward. I want you to step into your greatness.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, Kaela, thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you, Roy.
Did you want to drop your socials before we end it off?
My socials.
Yeah, how can people get in touch with you or follow your journey?
You can follow me at Kaela Faloon. I also have at Sensual Healing, but that probably won't be as active anymore, but we'll see. You never know what is in store, but I would love for you all to follow my journey. I promise you I won't be a stranger. It doesn't matter where I go in this world, I'll forever and always be Kaela Faloon from Ottawa, Ontario. Still humble and still always willing to be there for you, inspire you, and just celebrate all the successes that we both achieve. So I will not be a stranger, Toronto.
Very nice. Once again, I'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, which is the Dancewear Center Toronto. So if you need dancewear, dance shoes, the unitard that you've always wanted, Dancewear Center's always got you covered from head to toe. Make sure to shop in store or online at dancewearcenter.com, and dance is life. Live your passion. My name is Roy. I'm the host of the Unplugged podcast. This was season 2, episode number 3, number 36 with Kaela Faloon, sounding off. And we will see you guys next week. Peace.